Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Welcome to Baton Rouge Gallery. Thank you for joining us for our virtual First Wednesday. Tonight we are going to take you through the entire exhibition that is on view here at the gallery through February 24th. As always, the show is free and open to the public during normal gallery hours, which is every day but Monday from noon to 6. Tonight you're going to hear from three of the four artists who are sharing their latest works with us. We'll hear from Randall Henry, Kathleen Lemoine, Tom Richard, and we'll also hear a little bit about the work of Steve Schmidt. Before I do that, I want to say a quick word of thanks to all of our members and donors, everyone who helped support the gallery and make it possible for us to bring new exhibitions of primarily Louisiana-based artists here to Baton Rouge Gallery every single month. If you are not already a member, the best way to do that is through batonrougegallery.org/join. There you can sign up for memberships either on an annual basis or a monthly basis. They start as low as $5 a month. And it's a great way to support both local art, a venue that has supported local artists for over 50 years, and local artists themselves. So please look at becoming a member if you are interested in doing that. And again, thank you so much to all of our members and donors who support the gallery year-round and make exhibitions like this one possible. I want to say thank you to all of our board of directors as well for all their support. And thank you to all of our artist members. This is our first artist member exhibition of the year following Surreal Salon 14. And we are thrilled to have all four of these artists with us this month. So again, thank you to everyone. We're going to start by hearing from one of the longtime artist members who are showing with us this month, Randall Henry, who is showing it with Tom Richard in this front gallery. And then we'll make our way into the back and hear about the work of Steve Schmidt and from Kathleen Lemoine. So take it away, Randall.
You know, many years ago, I was on a flight and I was in Accra, Ghana, about to fly to New York City, and the pilot came over the loudspeaker and said, "It's a nice night for flying." I want to thank you for tuning in to Baton Rouge Gallery to see artwork. It's a nice night to look at artworks. And I want to thank the Foundation for Louisiana through its Louisiana World Makers Award for providing me with a grant that really inspired me to make these paintings. As you know, before these paintings came about, I was making small collages for a number of years. I mean, small, really small collages. So this is an adventure to make these larger works, similar to works that I've made in the 1980s. All through the 1980s, I was making large paintings, some even larger than these works. So it was an adventure. But it looked as if I fell right into that, as if I didn't miss a beat, I would think so, because I was impressed with the way these paintings came out. And it's always challenging to try something that's new after not working with it for a long time. So I'm satisfied with the way these works came out. Of course, working by improvise and improvisation was the way these works happened. I started each painting not knowing what subject matter I would deal with or what the works would look like, and just painted, brushed the canvas. And some inspiration came from that. So, and titles too. Also, many of these works have titles. That titles came about sometimes after I finished the work, or sometimes when I was almost finished the work, except for this painting. I knew I wanted to go back to the art history and find a theme that an artist works with. I want to do some theme painting. So this particular one is from a painting, Death of Sardanapalus. And this particular one has that, African rhythms to it. And now you see Sardanapalus on his bed, and he's surrounded by all the gold and his concubines and all his valuable things in life. And of course, he didn't want anyone to have, so he set the bed afire. And there he is in this work and surrounded by the colors and shapes take the place of the figures in the painting that was made by Delacroix. So this particular painting, it was actually fun to work on. This is the first one that I finished. And by finishing this painting, it gave me the insight to make the other work. So it's loaded with colors, and you see that black figure in it. In many paintings from throughout the history of art, many famous paintings, you can see black figures somewhere in the painting. So that's the take. That's the take I was working with in this particular painting. Why are they there? How are they treated? What are they doing in that particular place? But they were there. So that's the reason I put that one reason I think I put that black image. And it changed. First, it was a male figure. Then I needed something hanging on the side up to go with the gray color. So I made some, I guess, dreadlocks or plaits there and made it work out. So that's one painting that I had a lot of fun working on. And many years ago, I did sculpture work too. I love assembling sculptures. That means finding scrap materials and just making them work as an artwork. So these particular works made out of scrap found wood that I put together, and hoping that it would look like more than a wood project, but an artwork. And I'm satisfied with the way these came out too. And I had a problem trying to cover up mahogany wood with paint. So I know a woodworker would not want to hear that, but I'm a painter, so I primed the wood with gesso, and that made it easy for the acrylic paint to go on it. So it was a lot of fun working on these wood assemblages. And then another painting here. These titles I really like in these paintings too. This one is called The Conductor. Now, as soon as I finished this painting, I stepped back without having a title for it. I stepped back and looked at it, and I could not have done it on purpose, but I looked at it and said, right here, that looks like a person standing in front of a symphony orchestra with the arm up like this, with the musicians playing in the background. The musicians are the colors and shapes in this painting. So I thought that title would be just fitting, The Conductor, which I think is a strong title for this particular painting. Of course, you can see musical figures, musical instruments in it too. But the conductor is working with the leading to the colors and shapes in the painting. Not music, but colors and shapes. Even though we say the colors can be like musical too. And then another assemblage painting. This is standing figure. That's seated figure. I looked at that work and I said, it kind of looked like a seated figure. This is taller, so standing figure. And then another assemblage sculpture that I had a whole lot of fun working on is that particular one. Between these two paintings. Some years ago, I made some drawings. I called the drawing Man with Hat or Man with Pipe. And throughout the history of art, you can see, especially with Picasso and something Cubist artists, they made work that they call Man with Pipe or Man with Hat. So this particular one, when I finished with it, I said that it looks like a figure. Only thing needed now is a pipe. It looks like a man with a pipe. So I had to go out and find a pipe to put in the work. Yesterday, I tapped the pipe to it. And it's one of the, out of these three, I probably like this one best. That particular work has inspired me to make some bigger, larger assembly sculptures. And then I miss Mardi Gras. I miss Mardi Gras so much that I had to do a Mardi Gras painting. And that's particularly it. It's called Mardi Gras Again. It's coming up, Mardi Gras Again. So that particular one is getting me in the Mardi Gras spirit. I was all over New Orleans for the last Mardi Gras parade before COVID hit. So, well, let's see what will happen. And then this particular one called City Slickers. Believe it or not, when I finished this painting, I said, those look like tennis shoes. I did not intend to paint tennis shoes there. So the title came about, City Slickers. That's if a person is walking around the city, a city slicker, taking in the sights, taking in the colors and sounds and all of that in tennis shoes. So and to make it really look like tennis shoes, I put the string and the holes in the string up. So, and that was like improvising too, which really makes me want to start another painting and see what would happen with that particular one. So all in all, it was a whole lot of fun working on these new, this particular one. How did that horse get in this work? I saw some shapes that looked like a horse, and I started thinking about, I decided to call it Black Stallion. I could have painted it out, but I said, let me leave this horse in maybe it's taking me somewhere. And I thought about my uncle from many, many years ago, over 40 years ago. He had a barn in Lobdell, Louisiana, and it was called Black Stallion. And I said, well, maybe that's where this is coming from. I'm thinking of my uncle and Black Stallion Bar. I was a little kid at the time. So that's it, Black Stallion, which is one of work that I really like too. So it was a lot of fun working on these. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall. These are lovely.
And we put up on Facebook yesterday a post about your
I saw
your
that.
history with the gallery, and given the history, I'm wondering if you could speak to, you've been with the gallery for more than 35 years, and your impact with art on the city is not to be understated. I'm wondering if you could speak to what you've seen over the last 35 years. What has changed? What do you wish would change more? Anything you want to say about the evolution of art in our city?
Yeah, well, a student walked in my class this earlier today, and she showed me that post that you put on Facebook and said, "What, you saw it? I didn't know it was there." So that was great. I think I joined Baton Rouge Gallery in 1984. I think the records say 85, but I think it was 84. And it was a small time gallery, small time trying to be, I remember when it was on 4th Street. It was a small time gallery, but big for Baton Rouge. It was known as the best gallery in Baton Rouge. And then we moved here. It became a bigger gallery, and now it's Baton Rouge is such a wonderful city. This gallery is needed at this time. So we've had a whole lot of artists to show in the gallery, and some of the most wonderful shows in Baton Rouge have been in this particular gallery, on this site and on 4th Street too. I used to go to the gallery. I was in undergraduate school. Apple Laverne brought the student from Southern University on a trip to Baton Rouge Art Gallery. And I remember they were ready to leave out, and I was still in the gallery looking at works of art. So the variety of art that's been shown over the years is really spectacular. And now we're continuing to grow. And over the past few weeks, I was trying to think about something like Jason putting on it may sound crazy, but putting on a $1 million campaign just to see what would happen. So I didn't mention it to him, but that's something.
Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag, everybody.
So it's still a great gallery. So I think you should put on a $1 million campaign. People really love this gallery, and I think you get a lot of support too.
Well, you heard it. You heard Randall's pledge for $1 million personally. Thank you,
I was
Randall.
just thinking out the box. But that's been on my mind for about 2 months now.
Well, if anyone wants to donate to our $1 million
Yeah.
campaign, you can visit BatonRougeGallery.org. Here we go.
You heard it from me.
You heard it here first, folks.
All right. Well, if we want to make our way over and bring Tom Richard into the feed, another artist member showing this month, who will be joining us from Arkansas.
Hi, Tom.
Hello. Yeah, I'm in my studio in Arkansas. I'd like to thank everyone for being here, and I agree with Randall. Like, let's do a $1 million campaign. But my show, or the work in this show, is from the last 3 years, and it's 3 kind of separate that are not very interconnected, but they're all connected by the idea of book. I grew up in Houma, Louisiana, and stories from my parents that they would always say that the encyclopedia set was one of my best friends, that I would spend time reading encyclopedias and flipping through books and looking at books and looking at books and looking at books. And that's one of the first ways that introduced me in art and art making. And the works that are being shown right now are pieces that were done in the last couple of months, this last year. They're all bubblegum, from the Bubblegum on Art series, that depict painted bubblegum over images from art history books. At the university where I work, we've had numerous libraries from people donated to the university, and most of which are out of print books and older books that have gone to new editions that were in black and white. And we have these floating around the art building, and I brought some into my studio and said, well, what can I do with these? And I've often told students when, to work in their sketchbooks and work on different things, like, hey, just treat the blank page or the filled page of these art historical texts as a blank sketchbook and work on top of them. And so, years ago, I was making some pieces with Army men and made a bubblegum small sculpture of Stonehenge to include in pieces. And then a couple of years back included some bubblegums covering of different sections of pieces. And it's like, well, let me turn that into a whole series, and let me get back to working because of the pandemic and the ending of, like, live person art events. And what can I do to make this happen, and make this happen easily without a lot of, not easily, but without a lot of thought as to how to, like, make multiples, because I oftentimes work in series, and according to friends of mine, sometimes too large series. And so these depict bubblegum being painted over different sections of art pieces, some of which are the main focal point of the piece, some of which are kind of obscure things in the piece. And as I was working on them, it was kind of interesting because they were all divided into 5 different categories, where it was either bubblegum being placed over objects, bubblegum being placed over, like, groups of individuals, bubblegum being placed over images of death, or bubblegum being placed over images of chicks, like there are dudes, is kind of my take on the whole, like, bubblegum experience. And I wanted to, like, mat them and frame them in a way that they were positioned like they were on the original text, which is why they're not all centered, and where it, like, reads as the art history text from relation to the book, but then changed and moved around, where that's where they were really placed in relation to the book. Is that whole series and how that worked.
This is Kelsey. Tom, I think it's really interesting the way that you have these framed, and because to me, it clearly reads as an art history book, but there's something very kind of unnerving about the lack of text around it, right? And then to do this playful thing of putting bubblegum over work that you're supposed to take so seriously because it's in an art history book. Can you talk about the sort of playful nature?
Okay. Yeah, well, because I teaching art appreciation, teaching art history classes also, I find that students, or being a working artist and teaching an art history class, is a strange situation, because I take the text that's written around the information as serious as the visual information, which are not as serious. I think the visual information is more important. And I try to impart upon students the notion of actually, like, really reading the physical object instead of having someone, tell you how to read the object. And wanted to, like, kind of communicate that, and that the notion of, my work often deals with the notion of whimsy, and taking something that's a serious idea and not making fun of it, but playing with it, really toying around and having a good time, enjoying it, which is how I've always kind of approached art in general, and even art making as a process.
I think these are really, really fun. I'm going to scoot back to the other series you have here.
Yeah, this was actually a really kind of depressing piece, which is entitled, let me make sure I get the title correctly, The Coronavirus and the LSU 2019 Championship Season, which was the fall after, coronavirus we were going to be, like, done with, because this was made in 2020 during during the football season, the year after LSU won the national championship. And it began off with, well, these blocks of wood, which kind of relate back to a book idea. These blocks of wood were all in what is now our art building, which used to house the library at UAM. And these blocks of wood were all out where the public could come and pick up a block of wood with a call number on the side and bring it back and get a book that's reserved in the back. And so they had like hundreds of these blocks of wood that were all book size that I took and brought home to my studio and started making paintings on top of them. And when coronavirus hit, and there was all the work that was being done about like Corona and poking fun of it at it, and then it continued and continued and continued. And then when that in 2019, when I'm sorry, 2020, when the football season started, and like we're supposed to be entertained by watching football, and it's going to take our minds off everything, and there were football games being canceled, being shut down. It was very not depressing, but it's like I want to take my mind off of what's going on. And so I first started with actually the last piece in the series, the number 15, which like, let me like make a painting that's about coronavirus and the LSU Clemson game, and made that piece. And it's like, well, let me go back and make a piece that relates to the whole football season. And so what I did is set up a strategy of where I had the coronavirus and the space around it, and then took the opposing team that LSU played and painted the coronavirus with their main color and the negative space with their secondary color, and did that to all the pieces. So each one is in the individual game from LSU's 2019 season. So the one at the top left is when they played, who was it? Georgia. I'd like to go back and look. Georgia Southern. And then, the last one being Clemson. And so those are Georgia Southern's colors. And then on top of each piece, once I finished that, I painted the purple and gold of LSU, or purple and yellow, in the exact same kind of fashion over it, where sometimes the purple will like go away, sometimes the yellow will come forward. And so it created this whole really interesting dynamic of space within how the colors kind of interact that I didn't have planned whatsoever.
There was a question in the comments. Monica wanted to know if these are individual pieces or if it's a group, like the Kansas case.
Good, great question. I'd like it to be a group. I've worked in series that need to be held as a group. Would like these to remain, but if I've had like friends that have gone to the schools that LSU's played, and they said, I want to buy that one piece. I actually told them no, until because they hadn't been exhibited, and I don't know if they ever, I'm hoping they will again, but it was a kind of one, it related to that particular time so specifically that to bring them out of like time context, I don't know if that's viable.
All right, so we're going to scoot on into the hallway here. Are there any pieces in particular that we skimmed by that you want to touch on before we talk about the last set?
Well, yeah, there's more bubble gum stuff there. I think these are all the death bubble gum pieces, which those were actually the funnest ones to do because they were.
There's a Goya one here.
Yeah.
That I think might be my favorite because it takes such a gruesome, scary scene and makes it. It looks like this hungry kid just going after this huge piece of bubble gum, and not, the actual scene that it is. Yeah,
and just taking that out of context, and I had like friends come over to the studio, and I don't, because of my my old cavity-filled teeth. I don't chew bubble gum anymore, and had like one friend in particular that had her like chew some bubble gum and actually like form the piece for me on a piece of wood. And so it's like, okay, let me get so I can get the lighting and the how a highlight would work, how a shadow would work when it works that way. But I really love that. If I were like go back in time and restart this whole series, it would all be about death, because it just seemed appropriate to have that kind of that whimsical idea, and then it convert to a kind of a dread idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is from like the earliest work from what year? 2018, 2019, which this is a painting based upon a spread of a sketchbook, a collage sketchbook that I did for a specific show that was based upon the first like 2 years of the Trump presidency. And in the sketchbook, I did research and made lists of here are all the people that the president fired for the first 2 years, and put them in chronological order, and made and cut out like all their faces. And then at the time, I'd watched the movie Walk of Shame, which was a kind of interesting. I could read you the Google excerpt, which is the description of it from Google is Megan, or Elizabeth Banks, is an aspiring news actor in the cutthroat world of Los Angeles television. And after auditioning for a dream job that ends in failure, she goes out for an uncharacteristic night of partying. The next morning, she awakens in a stranger's bed and hears her phone message from an agent telling her that she has the job if she can get across town by 5 p.m. And she's stranded in an unknown area without money, phone, transportation, and races to the most important interview of her life. And the whole movie, she's wearing this yellow dress. And so all the firings are put in this yellow dress and placed upon situations relative that were happening in the news at the time that they were dismissed. And this is from the second to last page of spread, where I took the section of that sketchbook and then made a painting from it.
Very good.
And that's the last 3 years. So.
You distilled it all down. Well, thank you, Tom. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank y'all for showing it. It
Always.
was. I contemplated arranging or hanging it slightly differently in relation, but I really love the way it really reads, as especially the bubblegum pieces, as book as you're going through.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. And please visit BatonRougeGallery.org/current, where you can see all of these works, as well as the works that we're going to share with you from Steve Schmidt and Kathleen Lemoine. We're going to make our way here into the back gallery, and our exhibitions director, Kelsey, who you've heard tonight, will tell us a little bit about the works in his show, Nursed by Silence.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Forgive me from reading from my notes. I didn't want to skip important information, and I'm admittedly not as charming as Steve is in person, so sorry about it. Anyway, so this body of work by Steve Schmidt is called Nursed by Silence. He is enigmatic and does not explain that at all in his artist statement, which I actually kind of love. He is an abstract painter. He has been an artist member here since 1992. He tells me he's been painting for over 60 years. He got his MFA from LSU. He taught at the East Baton Rouge Parish Talented Art Program for a little while in the 90s, and then he also taught art at Baton Rouge Community College. When I asked him about his work, he says he is not a narrative painter. He's not looking to create recognizable images in his work. For him, it's more about the process of making the piece. He wants to dive into the painting and just start pushing pigment around until things really click into place. What I think is interesting about that is painting in an abstract way is very, very difficult. And to do this with such high key paint and such thick paint and have it not turn into mud is, I think, really astonishing and speaks to his years and years of painting. He says while he makes the work, he will often rotate it, so top to bottom, side to side. And then after he's been working on it for a while, he'll decide on its final orientation. When asked about why he makes abstract painting in this color field way that he does, really his answer is why not? Because he's playful and fun like that.
And again, these works and all the works in this month's exhibition are on view through February 24th. The gallery is open to the public every day except for Monday from noon to 6. But you can also see all of these works on the gallery's website at BattenridgeGallery.org/current. And we've got 2 more from Steve's work, or Steve's exhibition, to share with you. This piece is titled Azul Morado, and all of these works are oil on canvas. And finally, this is the piece that shares the title of the exhibition, Nursed by Silence. All right. So as we make our way to hear from our final artist of the night, our exhibitions director, Kelsey, will join us again and speak with Kathleen Lemoine, our final artist for the evening.
Hi, Kathleen. Oh, thank you. How are you? I'm good, and thank you for joining me to have a conversation about the work. I'm pleased. That's the way I think we can best approach looking at this work. So
Great. Where would you like to start?
Let's start with these 2 little paintings. They were, yes, these 2 little shapes, and they were meant from the beginning to go together. And it took a while, and they went through a lot of color changes and even a lot of shapes, but finally they got together. That was the plan all along, for them to be in conversation. So we'll start with them and move to the left here. I was thinking earlier today about what was important to me about this work, and I think that working 3-dimensionally, I was answering a question that I posed to myself, like, do you think of these as sculptures? Because they are 3-dimensional, but I don't. I don't think of them as sculpture. I think of them as painting that's broken down into shapes. The painting and the color breaking into shapes. So I still very much feel like a painter, and I don't think I'm going really into sculpture, but painting as it's breaking apart. So
When I was in undergrad, I had one of my favorite painting teachers would always tell us to really consider the rectangle, right? And what I think is great about these is on every single one, you've completely broken up that rectangle.
Well, I remember we talked about that when I installed the show, and I thought about that. I altered these shapes, and these shapes existed in the studio. Everything in this show that went to make up these paintings, I had on hand, and that was sort of my challenge. I thought to myself, I'm not going to go further into a new body of work, although I have 2 new bodies of work that I'm working on now. I wanted to take all of these shapes that were laying about the studio and make them into these paintings. And I thought, it'll either happen, or I'll make it or break it. And
I feel like you made it.
I think,
I think you did.
I think so too. So I was pleased. The shapes were important because they left the rectangle, but also while I was working on this work, I began to carve into it, to cut into the shapes. So that's important, and that's where I will be working further, because it seemed like drawing into color, drawing into the shapes. So there were two things going on that just kept me very interested and very engaged. And as we go further, it was important to consider every part of the shape. I had to hold them a lot. I had to turn them a lot. It was I used my painting ability, but I also got to go to the workshop, which turned out to be a really big, important thing that I'll be going forward with. So,
Make sure you get the back of this.
yeah, this is goes around to the.
So if these are dimensional paintings.
Yes, dimensional painting.
Would this be a standing dimensional painting?
That is, yes. That's how I'm thinking of them. So we're looking at paintings.
Right. So I think when people come and visit the gallery, don't touch obviously, but get in close, get in close and take a look at these, because the way they're constructed is just as important as the color use and the shape itself.
And craftsmanship is very important to me. For me, the throwaway doesn't work. Craftsmanship is very important. So I aim for that. I aim for everything to be as perfect and pristine as possible. But the hand still shows in every piece, and I want that. I'm fine with that, but I do aim to make it as carefully painted as I can. And towards the end of this work, this partial circle emerged as a real interesting component. And I used frames, some parts of frames that were, again, everything that was laying about the studio. And so in this particular painting, I not only shaped, but cut into it. So it was, and it's quirky. I thought that was a quirky little piece. I really, really liked it. It took a long time. A lot of these were multiple color combinations before the final one was hit upon. Now these shapes, these two vertical ones, were actually pieces of wood laying about the studio. They'd been there forever. And I thought about how could I combine them? And so there's a spine, and they march down the spine of this piece. Both of these were concerned with sort of this, I guess this walking, or this idea of motion. And again, the circles appeared in this one on the right.
They do feel like they're trying to creep right up the wall.
Yeah, that was my thought.
Yeah.
So I was at the, this took a long time. This series took a long time it was fun. Every bit of it was fun, but it did take a long time to resolve these. Maybe because I was adding the dimension, rather than working.
Well, I think also probably because you set this limitation on yourself to use what was there.
All the pieces, exactly.
And to deal with it as it
deal
was.
with it, yeah.
It
It was like deal with it. But meanwhile, I would sneak off and I worked on the new body.
Well, what are rules if not like?
That's right. I began to work to ease in the new body of work, but we'd come back to this, and so the shapes existed for a while, and then the challenge was working out the color.
Mm.
Now these two shapes, interlocking boxes, I did interlock the boxes, and they stayed a long time. before I finally figured out what I wanted to happen, how many colors I wanted to use. And in this one, it became important to have two colors that had the same weight, but were, you know, complementary colors that had the same weight. I was after a lot of odd color, offbeat color, and I think that was one of the things that I wanted. I didn't want predictable colors.
I think the way you mix your colors is very sophisticated and interesting. You're also looking not just at color, but at the texture of the paint itself.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, that was important. Some areas are very smooth, and then the textured parts to play against the smooth parts. So
From a color theory place, like I think this one is super interesting.
oh, that's one of my favorites. So you know, it's a pleasure to pass by the work, and the ones that have resolved themselves, it's a pleasure to pass by. And of course, the pink one is a frame, parts of frame. So that was and the circles made their appearance.
Stroke of red
Yeah,
here.
the little color there. So we can move on. Now all of these are from a single wood panel, and this was the first time. This was the earlier work. It came before the paintings on the right, and it was that cutting or drawing into a shape.
So this is when you're first starting to
This is what
use the saw as a drawing tool.
yes, and I'm very excited about where this is going.
And again, the paint texture might not come across in the video as well, but that's something to come enjoy in person. It's the way she contrasts some more kind of almost like a fine sandpaper feel versus a kind of shimmer versus
And
a high
I
gloss.
found a way to get my paint even flatter, and that was another development that seemed to fit what I was trying to do. Now I see in this one we've got the flat and the shiny,
Right.
which is I did in some of the pieces,
And also in a few, if you get really in close here, you can see the seam itself is a different color, which isn't super duper noticeable, but it does something to the color when you look directly at it. It gives it kind of a hum.
we had a great time hanging this show. I had the pleasure of Steve Schmidt and Rosemary Goodell showing up. Well, Steve was hanging his show, and he has a great eye, and he very generously began to help hang this show. Rosemary showed up, another artist member, and we collaborated on that hanging of this show. I actually didn't have a plan of how I wanted to hang it. So it was a lot of fun, and that's something else that I really want to happen is collaboration. And these shapes and these paintings, I would love for the viewer to be involved to the point of, well, maybe I'll turn this one.
But don't walk in.
No, don't walk in here and do it.
Watch what you say.
But get it, take it home with you. Take it home
Right.
with you, and feel free to orient it.
Purchase it and
Yes.
then reorient it at your own house.
Yes.
Yes.
So, any questions? Any other questions? I know that. Yeah, I'm telling them to come in here and
Come on in,
y'all
touch the
will.
walls. Give Kelsey a heart attack.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
How did you go about painting? Did you paint them before you put them together or after you put them together?
No, I actually the shape came first, and the drawing with the cutting tool that came first. The paint,
Yeah.
then I began to paint. So the paint needed to bring the shape to life. It needed to animate the shape, and along with the ideas that I had, that I wanted this offbeat color. I didn't want to, and a flatter look. juxtaposed with.
How do you keep the precise look with the paint?
I do tape.
Tape, okay, that's.
Yeah, I do tape. Some of them I can paint the shapes and fit them together, but I do use
Yeah.
tape. I don't rely on it always, but I do use tape.
And what kind of glue did you use to hold these together?
Wood glue.
What
Great
glue like I
secrets,
use?
Rendell.
Well, I asked him
We
earlier.
talked about that.
We talked about it, because I had a,
But I didn't know you used the same type of.
yeah, I did. And I didn't, I think you nailed in
I use
glue.
nails too.
And I just glued, but these are small and clamps.
Clamps, okay.
Yeah, a lot of, clamps. I walked many miles to the work, from the studio to the workshop. And it was, even to go and make a little, I used found pieces, but I also altered. So mine is found and altered. I think Randall said he just used found shapes, but I am always altering. So, any more questions?
I'd love to see the clamp set up on some of these. I think that'd be a lot of fun for anyone who's ever had to make anything in a wood shop.
Yeah, it's, I don't do the table saw, though. That's when I call in the other half of the muscle in the house.
Probably
Those
smart.
won't
They can
cover
smell
the
fear.
I thought those would cover the table saw.
No, these are wood panels that I've shaped. I've shaped them
Yeah, okay.
and then cut into the,
What kind of saw?
well, now which to do what? To
Like
cut
that-
in
like
is
that,
a
to cut in.
jigsaw.
And you got straight lines?
Yeah. Oh, a chop saw.
Oh, okay.
A chop saw, jigsaw, and a band sander.
Okay.
So, it was such a joy to put this work together and, the show together. And, the title of the show is, All Shall Be Well, from, it's fairly well-known prayer or writing of, St. Julian of Norwich. She was an English mystic who lived in the 14th century. And during her lifetime, there were two plagues. The Black Plague swept through Europe twice, causing death, a lot of death and destruction, social upheaval, and economic upheaval. And of course, there was isolation. So many things that we've gone through with COVID hark back to her time. And so there's a lot of relevance now in her writings and her mystic visions. And so it was a joyful show to create. And I wanted joy during this difficult time, and not just with COVID. We had challenging times in many areas, but I went to joy. I wanted to go towards joy. So I think the entire saying is, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And it just made me feel better, and it makes me feel better to hear it. And it perfectly summed up what I wanted to say. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randall.
Okay.
Kathleen, before we wrap up, because I want to pose the question that I posed to Randall, and not so much exclusive to Baton Rouge Gallery, but you've been a longtime artist member here.
Yes.
You've been an important part of art in Baton Rouge for many, many years. And I'm wondering if you wouldn't care to speak to what you've seen in Baton Rouge over your years, and what you'd like to see, how things have evolved, how you wish they would continue to evolve, anything you want to add.
I would like to say that a big difference I see is our relevance to community. Now, our openings are huge,
Yeah,
and
when we can have them.
well, before COVID, the openings, 400 or 500 people were here on an opening night, and that was from all parts of the community. That's been the biggest change, I think, is the young, old, the diversity has been amazing. And the community, I think we've embraced the community more and the community has embraced us. And I think that's a change from an earlier time when we were smaller and maybe there wasn't that same sense that, that art and community are important.
Mhm.
I think that's been the biggest change and just more of it. I'd like to see it keep going, and it will, I'm confident, with the $1 million campaign
I was just gonna say, you
that
wanna plug
Randall
that?
has proposed.
Again, thank you, Randall, everybody.
Yeah, I feel
on
like
behalf of
I
everyone.
feel like we're going the only way. Well,
I guess
thank
the
you.
only-
It's been fun. It's been a fun evening. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kathleen, and thank you, Kelsey, for walking us through the gallery as well. I'll hand the camera back to Kelsey. And now it's my turn. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us tonight. We really, really appreciate it. Again, please come through all this month through February 24th. The work of all 4 artists is on display at the gallery, completely free and open to the public from noon to 6 every day but Monday through the 24th. And again, you can see all of it at batonrougegallery.org/current. If you have any questions, please reach out to us here at the gallery and come on by and see us sometime. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
So nervous.